City Council takes a look at pool problems. A local firm tries to unravel a Lac-Mégantic mystery. And 2 Canadian detainees released, but still not free.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The declining condition of the city outdoor pools will be front and center at City Hall tonight.
A report that will go before council says Thunder Bay's Dease Pool is in such rough shape that only 2 options exist: decommission it or replace it altogether. There are 3 city-operated outdoor pools: Dease, Heath Park, and Widnall. The report concludes that the Heath Park pool is in need of repairs to its foundation. That work's estimated to cost about $280,000, and the work would likely begin next spring before the pool opens. Dease, on the other hand, is in need of more than $1 million worth of repairs. The pool is over 100 years old and has several problems. Administration says that planning to replace the pool should start now. A similar type facility would cost more than $3 million. Demolition costs are estimated at about $180,000.
The Ontario Native Women's Association is using the anniversary of an important historical document to highlight a lack of progress on the part of Canada to protect Aboriginal women against violence. The Royal Proclamation of 1763 laid the groundwork for treaties between First Nations and the government. But ONWA Executive Director Betty Kennedy calls it a tragedy that 250 years later, the federal government continues to ignore more than 600 cases of missing and murdered Aboriginal women in this country. According to Statistics Canada, Native women are 7 times more likely to be murdered than non-Native women. That's one of many issues that will be explored over the next 9 days by Professor James Anaya, Special Rapporteur to the United Nations Human Rights Commission. He's in Canada on a fact-finding mission as he prepares to draft a report on Indigenous rights to be presented to the UN next year. Kennedy hopes the added pressure will spur the Canadian government to action, but she says it should not have gone to this point.
I think it's utterly disgraceful, actually, that the United Nations has to bring forward the issue to Canada itself when we, espouse to the rest of the world that we are a leader in terms of human rights, and yet we choose not to take action in our own country. It's been brought forward before that Canada is certainly negligent in this area, and for us to continue on the world scene not being the leader that we espouse to be, I think is really a poor reflection on Canada.
Kennedy says ONWA will continue to pay tribute to all those missing and murdered women and to fight for the justice they deserve.
A Thunder Bay DNA lab is now involved in helping to identify victims from that devastating train disaster in Lac-Mégantic. The Quebec Coroner's Office was able to identify 39 of the 47 victims the police say died in the July 6th tragedy, but the other 8 remaining victims are still considered missing because no remains were found or they've been too difficult to identify. That's where the Orchid Pro DNA lab comes in. The company, a division of Gamma Dynacare Medical Labs, specializes in mitochondrial DNA technology. Most forensic cases use nuclear technology, but the mitochondrial technique is used when DNA is very tough to extract. Amarjeet Chahal is the senior director of the local lab. He says they were contacted by the coroner's office about a month ago. They've completed work on the only sample they were given, and Chahal is hoping they'll be able to bring closure to the victims' families.
These cases is an incredible feeling for our staff to help provide closure to these families, whether they are remains from First and Second World War or their remains from a mass disaster situations like, in this case, from Lac-Mégantic.
Chahal could not discuss specifics about possibly identifying any of the victims, but he adds that it's still not clear if his lab will be receiving any more samples from the Quebec Coroner's Office.
Premier Kathleen Wynne says she's not worried about possible political fallout from tomorrow's release of an Auditor General report that will reveal the total cost for the cancellation of 2 energy projects. Wynne says the audit isn't about her political future, but rather giving Ontarians clarity on the true cost of the Liberal government's move to scrap gas plants in Oakville and Mississauga. The report will examine the Oakville cancellation after the Mississauga plant was audited earlier and is expected to raise the total cost beyond the most recent estimate of $585 million.
After spending 21 years in a Thailand refugee camp, the mother of a family of 5 says she's overjoyed to be moving into her new Thunder Bay home. Today is World Habitat Day, and Habitat for Humanity Thunder Bay celebrated by holding 4 home dedications across the region. Cheryl Holmes has more.
Samuel Ta spent 21 years in a refugee camp in Thailand. She's now moved to Thunder Bay, and after living in the Limerick Street area for a while, she's proud to call her new Habitat for Humanity built house on Mary Street home.
I just say to all of my friends, like, oh, this is my house, you know. I can feel like everybody have a house, and then now I got my house. That's when I was so proud of myself to get my house.
This home dedication was one of 4 that happened across our region to celebrate World Habitat Day. 2 homes were dedicated to families in Thunder Bay, 2 to families in Marathon. The celebration is a major milestone for Habitat for Humanity Thunder Bay, as this was their first time expanding beyond the city limits and into the district.
One of the things I love about working in Canada is that Habitat for Humanity is made up not only of large urban centers where we work, but also the small communities. And what I saw in Marathon this morning was just the spirit and the compassion that that community had for those 2 families.
Everywhere there are families in need of housing that's affordable and decent, and so this allows us to go out into the district. We have enough of a base now in Thunder Bay and enough staff to be able to do this and move out into the district and start to build houses out there or refurbish houses out there.
The sponsors and volunteers who helped build and support the Habitat's effort were honored for their continued work to help provide shelter in a world where it's lacking for so many. The organization recognizes that shelter and community are basic needs that will improve the lives of these families for years to come.
Most of my neighborhood here, and that they came over and say hi to me, and that there was beautiful family around, and that everyone, I can feel like this is my new life and new place for me.
Since its inception in 1994, Habitat has constructed 23 homes, allowing 59 children in our city to have hope for the future. Cheryl Holmes, TBT News.
If you've got a good idea to help improve the community but don't know how to get started, there's a new option. TBTEL has launched an initiative called For Good, which gives people the chance to receive funding for ideas that positively impact the community. The year-long program is broken up into 4 seasonal campaigns, with the first focusing on education. Groups or individuals can go online and submit their idea. The public then gets to vote on which entry they like the best. The winner on each campaign will receive $5,000 to institute their idea, while 5 runners-up will all get $2,000 apiece. Marie Hartwick is a coordinator with Volunteer Thunder Bay. She thinks it's a great idea to help people like students get their ideas off the ground.
I think this program will mean that they have a first step. I know I talk to a lot of students, they don't know what to do first. So this would be a great starting point for them to get some funding to get the ball rolling for them, and then they'll open more doors for them in the future.
We're always looking for different ways that we can not only support the community, but obviously get other folks in the community involved in that process. So we're looking for ideas, but we're also looking for everyone out there to look at the ideas and decide which ones they would like to see actually come to fruition.
Submissions for the education campaign open today. The other 3 campaigns will focus on sports and recreation, the environment, and the arts.
For 11 years now, Staples Thunder Bay has been giving thousands of dollars to schools across the city. That money goes towards supplies used inside the classroom for families who might be struggling to afford them. Today, Staples, in partnership with the Kiwanis Club, donated just over $3,400 to McKellar Park and St. Margaret schools. Pasquale Cocamiglio is the store manager at Staples. He says every year a different school is selected to receive the money. The decision is based on which ones the Lakehead District School Board and the Catholic School Board believe are most in need.
We certainly see thousands of people come through our store. Unfortunately, in our community, there are needy kids, and they tend to get forgotten about at the busy back-to-school time. And so this is Staples' way of giving back to our community that we all live and work in. And it's our way of lending a hand to those kids that can't quite afford the supplies they need.
Money for the program is raised through a variety of fundraising efforts, including donations and a customer appreciation barbecue.
The Ontario Arts Council has announced the awarding of several grants in support of area arts organizations. The largest is going to the Thunder Bay Symphony, $222,000 that will be directed toward operating costs for their 2013-14 season. As well, the Community Arts and Heritage Education Project will receive $40,000 for operating costs.
Thunder Bay's Teen Challenge Recovery Center has moved into a new location. The outreach program, which helps people to deal with addiction recovery, is now open to more patrons. And as Mike Albanese reports, center officials believe the new building will greatly increase their effectiveness.
The Teen Challenge has been serving the Thunder Bay community through recovery since 2004. The program is designed to help 18-year-old or older males and females with a controlling addiction by using faith to turn their lives around. One example of accomplishment is Robbie Ahuja, who became a director for Teen Challenge after graduating the program.
I was dying. I was in and out of jails, lived a life of death and destruction, and in 2006 my daughter's grandma told me about Teen Challenge. I went through the program in British Columbia, and today, 8 years later, it completely transformed my life.
Ahuja is pleased to have the new Addiction Recovery Center on Syndicate open today since it improves their intake of new students. They were originally trying to find enough room to squeeze students into a 6-bedroom building, and now with the new place, they have more opportunities.
This just means we're able to do what we do better ×2. We're going to be able to expand to 10 men with the project of expanding to 16 down the road. We'll be able to have separate rooms and classrooms. We'll be able to centralize all of our counseling, our re-entry, our offices all into one building.
A current member of the program is Ben Peters, who came into the program with a life-controlling addiction of his own. Peters said his 10 months at the center so far have changed his perspective on almost everything, and he believes the center can help anyone.
To everybody, not only the teens, but anybody, it's a huge life experience and a learning experience, and you just get to do things that I never thought I'd be able to do.
Amongst the guests attending the opening ceremony today was Mayor Keith Hobbs, who had nothing but pride and great feeling about what he has seen from the center thus far.
It is awesome. You know, as a police officer, you see so many lost souls, and when you can see them being picked up and helped and, built into productive citizens, it really does your heart good.
The Teen Challenge hopes to continue making Thunder Bay and the people who inhabit it have a better, safer existence. Mike Albanese, TBT News.
Hundreds of Thunder Bay residents gathered yesterday dressed in pink to run for family members, friends, and others who have been affected by breast cancer. It was the 22nd annual Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation CIBC Run for the Cure. Over 900 people showed up to support the cause. Almost everyone had some pink in their wardrobe. The crowd was full of people who have been affected by breast cancer, along with several survivors. Samantha Robinson has gone through some hardships, but is now cancer-free. In almost 5 years, she's had 4 surgeries, including a double mastectomy, as well as chemo and reconstructive surgery. And Robinson says the biggest thing for people going through this is to have a support group.
That's the biggest thing, is having that support group and knowing that even though these people might not be here to support me, but knowing that they're here supporting somebody. And I think that's really awesome, because that's what people that are going through this need, is that support.
This year's run brought in close to $120,000.